Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our AI Made Simple webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. So over the next hour, we will explore how AI can generally make your workday easier, help you save time, cost, boost productivity, and also break down the difference between Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, and show you which one to use and when. We'll also touch a bit of AI security, just to make sure you stay compliant when you use those tools and keep your data safe. So basically some little quick wins from everything. John will be in charge of all of that. For the ones who don't know us, I believe most of you do, but we are Octopus Computers. So we are an IT support and managed service company based in Rutland. We help all businesses from all types and size, anywhere in the UK, even globally, with their cybersecurity, emails, antiviruses, all security software you can think of. I said the emails.
Anything
Trainings,
nerdy.
anything nerdy. I said we do pretty much everything, hardware as well. So if you need any of that, just shout. John is our speaker today. He's our lovely general nerd, and he's going to be speaking about AI because apparently he's an expert in that. Let's say
I
that.
don't think there's anyone who's an expert at the moment, even
No,
the people who are making it, but no problem. I'll crack on.
yeah,
As
go
Romy said,
on.
please do use the chat or the Q&A. At the very least, I'll try and answer everything at the end, but if it's relevant to what we're saying, I'll try and dive into it there and then. We are going to cover 3 LLMs, which are language learning models or AIs. We're going to talk about Gemini, which is Google's, Copilot, which is Microsoft's, and ChatGPT, which is owned by OpenAI, which apparently is a non-profit, but that's complete nonsense. They're for profit. All 3 of them serve different purposes. On those, we're going to talk about when and how to use them. We're going to talk about quick wins you can use if that's the one you want to play with. And also, I think it's important we talk about the security and the data privacy piece of each one. And we'll go through those sort of model by model. Hopefully you gain something from this. I appreciate not everyone's going to be using all of the tools. It's quite rare for people to actually be using, for example, Gemini and Copilot. So hopefully you gain something from it. Just to sort of set the stage a bit, I think it's important we set some baseline rules in terms of how you can use AI, why it's becoming important, what that looks like. I won't read bullet points to you. I think you're all capable of that. But the first point being automation. I think what we lose a lot of time doing in every business is admin, and it's the repetitive tasks. It's the standard email templates, all those things which we can repeat, and that's really where AI can add a lot of value. You can start to automate any of those repetitive or time-consuming tasks. You can also ask AI, give it your day and ask it which tasks you're losing the most time on, what are repetitive, and it will then prompt you on how to automate those. So definitely have a look at doing that. In terms of making better decisions, AI is smarter than us. Okay, the computers are better. They think better. They don't have emotions. It makes them very rational. It doesn't mean that the data sets they're accessing are accurate. It doesn't mean it's the best thing in the world, but they're able to analyze patterns and large data much quicker, much more accurately than humans can. Certainly when it comes to high-level analysis or data analytics, there's no way a human can compete. It's just not the case. Even when it comes to reciting facts or looking back through history or statistics, it has access to all of it instantaneously, and it's catalogued it correctly, and we're relying on memory and opinion and bias. So when it comes to making decisions, asking it for objective opinions can work quite nicely, depending on the model and how you do it. It also is really good for improving creativity, which is controversial. I don't think it should replace creativity, just fundamentally. I think it should be used as a tool to enhance it where required. So that could be prompts, helping you brainstorm, refining ideas, helping you with execution, those kind of pieces. There's a lot of problems I have personally with AI about how it is undermining creativity. I think that we are using it in the wrong ways in a lot of cases. That would be things like using it to generate or write content creatively, as opposed to replacing the jobs we don't want to do. So why are we left doing the admin and the accounts and the finances and not doing the human creativity piece? Seems a bit odd to me, but it can enhance those if you run things by it. If you want to use it to brainstorm or create, it's really useful. It's really good at creating real-time insights depending on the model. So in uploading or giving it data to analyze and ask questions of is a really good way to do. If you have a number of white papers or case studies or data points, you can upload them, it can analyze all of them and give you the feedback in some really top salient points depending on how you prompt it. And a lot of AI that we're going to be talking about is about the prompts that you put in. It definitely levels the playing field because of its capabilities. So you are able to produce the same level of report or output as a much larger organization by being very small, because you've got access to the same tools and compute power. We have totally removed the what was sort of 30, 40 years ago technology, where you would have extremely large data centers and a high team of analytics going on. Analysts, I knew that was the right word in there somewhere. We have a high team of analysts producing reports. That can now be done at the click of a button. So you now have an even field where this level of innovation isn't limited just to high level businesses. The gap basically is closing, and it gives you much more leverage to apply that technology. And it's also worth noting that this is mostly about future proofing. Investing in AI and the technologies of today now will set you up for the next 10 years. I've looked through the attendees on the call. I think we all remember when the internet first came around and when it started changing and transforming what that meant for business and digital infrastructure and productivity. These are now terms that we take for granted. We use them natively. And AI, I think, is going to have exactly the same transformative journey. It's going to become very embedded in what we're doing. We can choose to be ahead of the curve and leaning into it, or we'll be deemed the Luddite and we're going to have to try and catch up in years to come. So definitely try and lean into these tools if possible. Hopefully that sets the scene a little bit. So moving forward, we're going to talk about, as I said, 3 models. We'll start with Google Gemini, probably the least used on the call, unfortunately. Gemini is Google's one from Google Workspace. Every brand nowadays has an AI model. I'm sure you've all been aware of that. Google Gemini is rolled into all Workspace subscriptions. So if you're using Google Workspace, Business Starter, Standard, Enterprise, anything above, you get access to Google Gemini. They charged more, but it's there. So it's worth leaning into. There's no point paying for additional models if you already have access to this one. It doesn't mean it does everything correctly. It doesn't mean it's the best one on the market. There isn't a single best model, but it definitely does some things better than others. So the first one is obviously its integration with Google. The fact that Gemini is able to be fully integrated to all of your Google Workspace stack makes it, if you're a Google Workspace user, inherently better. It can fish or get data from your Drive, your Docs, your Sheets, your Gmail, all of these documents. It can also operate in Word and Excel if they're hosted online. It can open those documents and convert them into Google format, which will then work from there. So that really deep Google integration is worth looking at. It's also very good at research and fact checking. And in fact, it's underutilized in this sense. Bear in mind that Google owns Google. And that's something we can often forget when we're using Google Workspace. It is a search engine and Gemini is directly linked to it. That means if you're looking for a bit of research or fact checking about particularly current events or things which are up to date, it can actually pull more credible sources, more reliable data than you can actually get from ChatGPT, because ChatGPT takes snapshots in time. It doesn't always have the latest and greatest going on in the news. Gemini does, because it's search related. So have a think of those. It's a very good research assistant. Gemini is very good in Google Sheets in particular, which is the Excel equivalent. It's very useful for saying, produce a formula that does this, help me visualize data, summarize trends, show me the top performing products by revenue growth in this quarter, using real words that we might ask someone in a finance department, and they would go away and create very complicated macros and formulae in Excel, which very few people could understand or replicate. Gemini will now be able to do that for you very quickly. And it does usually work as well, to its credit. It's worth saying nothing is perfect. There's a reason I'm not doing live demos on this webinar. It's because you can guarantee they won't work. But Gemini within Sheets, I would say, performs fairly well. And it's worth thinking about if you have a large budget, or you can export or download your finance data in particular from somewhere like Xero or QuickBooks or Sage, asking it the questions, getting it to scrutinize it. And if you don't know what to ask it what you should ask it is invaluable. It's what it's there for. It's very good at writing and summarizing documents. So Gemini, in terms of emails, in terms of writing templated things, blog posts, creating pictures, it can produce all of these for you. If you want to know how to access it, you can literally go to gemini.google.com, by the way. It looks just like ChatGPT if you want to play with it there, but it is embedded in all the apps as well. I particularly use it for changing the tone of some emails. If you are somebody who perhaps, like I write one-word emails, I'm very direct, and sometimes people prefer a fluffier response. I can ask Google or Gemini to fluff my emails, make them sound a little bit longer and wordier than perhaps they would do. Similarly, though, if you know that the person you're dealing with just wants bullet points, like me, you could write your email as normal and ask it to condense it down to the bullet points for you. Then when they're repeatable, it can start creating those as templates for you in the future. Another thing Gemini does very well is drawing your insights, if you want, the context from Gmail and Drive. You have to give it permission, you have to let it access things, especially if you're on Workspace, but it has what's known as context awareness. Really useful for juggling multiple projects and clients, really useful for if you're producing a report for a client, asking Gemini, can you tell me what they requested in their last email to me? It can do that. And it's worth knowing that because it has that ecosystem link, it can start producing it for you. Fundamentally, like I put at the end, it is the go-to tool you should be using if you are using Google Workspace for the things we've mentioned. I wouldn't say it's a necessarily fully fledged AI yet. There isn't a single model which is delivering all of these appropriately, but Gemini is a really good companion tool that you are getting anyway by having a Workspace subscription. It should be probably more of a research and operations piece than anything else. If you remember when we talked at the start there about the ways that AI can be used, I haven't talked here about using AI to boost creativity. It is not as good at content generation as some of the other models on the market. It is very good at an awful lot of things when prompted correctly, but it's not as good at, say, writing a full blog article for you. It can be, but it takes a lot of training, but there are better off-the-shelf ones you could be using. So moving on to the next one in terms of quick wins you can take with Gemini. I'm just really conscious of time and that I could spend forever talking about this. I'm going to try and rattle through these. Quick things you do. Firstly, whenever you open a Google Meet, if you're not using Google Meet for your meetings and you're on Google Workspace, why not? So whenever you're having your meetings Google Meet, enable Gemini, it will transcribe them and it will give you full summaries, which I'd say are pretty good. We use it for a lot of our meetings and it does deliver. Be cautious, read through them before you share them with everyone because it picks up on everything you say. So if you have a passing comment such as, oh yeah, we'll deal with that tomorrow, the action point will say, John will do this tomorrow. And I don't like that level of being held to account. So be cautious of what you're saying and do vet your notes before you share them outwardly. It does also stamp all of them with the transcriptions, so it can jump you straight to the call recording and show you what was agreed when. Again, for any organizations working remotely or anybody who's having to have potentially formal meetings over video call, it's a really useful tool for that as well. So would recommend that you enable Gemini within your Google Meet immediately. It does summaries in docs really nicely, and that is also a help me write or summarize this document, or how else could I reword it, asking for the context clues that we probably wanted 15 years ago when we had Clippy in Microsoft Word helping us write things and it always felt crap. This is really where Gemini can come in. Asking it for that advice when you're writing things is really nice. Asking it to summarize entire documents into, say, a 1-minute summary or a couple of bullet points, also really useful if you have large documents crossing your desk. In particular, reports, proposals, RAG documents, high operational manuals. It can summarize all of those down to you and actually give you an analysis on key action points as well. And the same thing, of course, is true on Sheets. Ask it, give it some prompts. Some simple ones to use are summarize some trends for me. So it can actually analyze and scrutinize your data and produce some trends. Ask it to predict the future based on the data you've given it. Easy thing for it to do, and something that we would really struggle to do based on guesswork. It will use facts and maths, and also create a chart showing X. So if it's finance, showing me our quarterly growth. If it's staff retention, showing us our churn rate. It can actually just visualize that all for you and produce it quite quickly. So for data storytelling, I think is how that's termed, worth having a look at. As I said, use it for instant research, really good for current insights that ChatGPT can't do because ChatGPT has what's known as a training cutoff. Gemini doesn't. Gemini is actively integrated in search. So use gemini.google.com if you are looking for current opinion on political polling or latest legislations or anything which is changing very quickly. GPT will have to base that on things it does have current feeds from, which usually are social media and opinion, whereas Google is integrated directly to search, so have a look at that one. And ask it as well for how you can create some prompts to use every day. So things which you have like a library of what I would call a go-to prompt or routine. So summarize this email thread, draft a blog intro, generate 5 client follow-up ideas, produce for me some automation scripts, asking AI and working with it like it's a teammate, an extremely competent teammate. That's a really good place to be. So asking it what prompts you could be giving it every day is really nice. Something I do with Gemini is I ask it to look at my calendar and my emails and to prioritize 3 tasks I must complete today. It's a really simple, easy win that it's giving me my priority list. I'm capable of prioritizing, but it's nicer when the machine holds my hand. So ask it how it can help you rather than telling it, because it probably knows better. Moving on to safety and privacy. Obviously, these are key points with AI. It's something that we often overlook because we get excited by the new technology. So understand how Gemini shares your data and how that works. First important thing to know is where your data goes when you're using Gemini. If you are not on Google Workspace and you use Gemini, it uses your data. It will train things on your data. That's what's going to happen. It doesn't share it. No one is sitting there reading your emails on any of these platforms. They've all got better things to do. However, the data is fed into a machine which trains things based on what you've said. So if you were writing a book, throwing that into any AI agent means that your words from your book are now publicly available and people could write in your style. Doesn't mean they can say reproduce what someone else gave me. That just isn't how text prediction works. But you are training a machine based on your own work. It's worth being aware, therefore, that you shouldn't put sensitive information into any AI models, and that's something we're going to come back to for all three. It's good practice, basically, to avoid typing private or regulated data. So financial info, client identifiers, anything like that. Fundamentally, computers don't forget things. And if you have that caveat going into it, you're not going to tell it something you shouldn't do. Gemini specifically, check your workspace admin settings, as well as your enterprise or license permissions. So that's points 3 and 5 there. You can, in admin policy, control what's compliant, how long data is retained, how it handles stuff like meeting summaries and drafting, whether they're enabled. And when you go up towards Google Workspace Enterprise or Gemini for Workspace Enterprise, it also has a version, I'm trying to word this correctly, where your data isn't used to train models. So the more you pay them, the less they utilize your data, strangely. And Copilot does the same thing, and even ChatGPT does the same thing. So the more you pay them, the less that your data will be used to make the machine better. If that matters to you, be aware of it. Do verify all AI generated content. It is not fact. It is a guesswork engine. It sits there producing things based on prompts and based on what it thinks comes next. It is literally text prediction. Google has been doing this for 30 years. When you type into Google search, what is the best, it prompts you for the next word. It's been doing that for a very long time. That is the same thing. It is doing exactly that, but producing long form text, which is why it's so convincing, because it's studied human language for so long. So always verify what it's given you. If you are seeking facts, ask it to provide sources and citations and check them, because it's going to produce those citations based on what other people have cited. Anytime you're asking for fact, get it to give its source. Don't just take it as written, because it will always produce data that you want to read. That's what AI assistants do. They want ego strokes. They want to tell you that you're great, everything you've said is completely correct, and here's the evidence to back it up. So always ask for sources. And finally, on your Google policies, be aware of what's going on with it. Google regularly updates its Gemini privacy and security policies. It's really smart to review them once every few months or when new features launch. They'll generally email you. It's just a quick check of them to make sure that you're confident with what's happening. A lot of companies are now changing their terms, in particular deep in the T's and C's, about what data they own and what data they can use to train AI models. Adobe is famous for this. If you are using Photoshop or Illustrator, anything you now produce in Adobe Creative Cloud is, as far as they're concerned, theirs to use, and they can use it to train their models. So you are actively giving your data, for example, to Adobe if you use Photoshop. And the same is true now for an awful lot of products. So always check your T's and C's if it's a concern. Moving on from Gemini, we've got Copilot next. Microsoft Copilot is not included in 365 by default. It's there in Windows and 365, but it isn't always enabled. You get like a taster of it. So you always have to pay more in Microsoft to get access to the full features. A bit of a pain. However, just like Gemini, it has access to the same suite of products within that environment. So your Word, your Excel, Outlook, Teams, PowerPoint, they all have access through Copilot if you're using it. It's worth saying that unlike Gemini, Gemini handles structured data, unstructured data quite well. Copilot doesn't. Copilot really needs structured data to make sense of what things are doing, where they live, what they mean. It just isn't as good fundamentally as Gemini and GPT, but it does have its place. In particular, like I've said, Excel and data analysis, just like Gemini, it handles it very well. They spend a lot of time doing it. Machines love data. Understandably, they produce it quite quickly. So ask it what you want to produce, have a play, see if it works for you. It's not bad at document drafting in Word. It's not bad at sort of helping you out with prompts. I would say I wouldn't get Copilot to produce entire documents or first drafts. I would get it to summarize. I would get it to prompt key headings, key titles, or things you may have missed. And potentially you could get it to rewrite sections to change tone or length. but it is not a full document writing machine. It just isn't capable of it. And well, it does produce it, it won't do it well. And it's very noticeable when you receive an entire document written by AI. No matter what anyone thinks, automated detection doesn't work, human detection does. Everyone can tell when something's written by AI. So it is a good time saver, but use it to tidy up or to expand. Don't use it to do all the work for you. It's reasonable at PowerPoint slides. I generally find it behaves reasonably. I normally get it to produce unstylized content if I'm using Copilot, and then I ask the default PowerPoint styling to tart them up. If you ask an AI assistant to produce both, if you get it to produce content and style concurrently, it won't look as good as you hope, either through GPT, Gemini, or Copilot. One of those things will fall down because it's having to process a lot of graphical things. It generally doesn't work. But it can build the structure really nicely, and then it can generate you pictures to put in. It does it. So have a look at producing your slide decks through it. Where it really shines, I believe, is in Microsoft Teams. Teams, if people are using it, becomes extremely embedded in business process and operations. It's used not just for meetings, but for document access, for communication, for quick chats and summaries. And because you can link so many apps to Teams, when Copilot is leveraged there, it can really start to come into its own. So asking it to summarize or ask when did we agree we were going to do this? When did such and such say this? All of those things that we have them in the back of our mind. Oh, I'm sure Romy mentioned a webinar about AI. Hey, Copilot, when did you tell me I was going to do that? It can find from our chat messages what was agreed. And those little things save us an awful lot of time. The same goes for when you're searching through Outlook. How often do you go, oh, I wonder, when did they send me that email? What was it about? If you know who it was from or what the content was, you can ask Copilot and it will help you find it. Same with Gemini and Gmail. So those little things save us so much time compared to how we've historically worked. But asking in Teams in particular, who's responsible for next steps, what decisions were made, what have we agreed as an action point, what are the follow-ups, those are where it starts to work. You can then on the back of it, especially on the back of meetings, start diarizing those tasks, ask it to put them straight into Planner, which is a Microsoft app you get access to for free, ask it to add any deadlines to your calendar automatically, and start building these automations so that on the back of a meeting, you're not having to do the admin work, you're doing the thinking, and all the admin is being done automatically for you. It can also start, because it's an environment, it can start allocating those tasks to other people automatically and assigning them for everybody on the call, not just you. Even if they're external, if they're on 365, you can invite them as a guest. They can then start collaborating as well. So when you use it cleverly, it should be taking off an awful lot of the project administration, not the management, just the admin piece of it. And that's really where you should be leveraging Copilot the most. It's very good at productivity. It's a very good execution engine. And the reason for that is that 365 and Microsoft for a very long time have had what's called Flow or Power Automate and Power Apps. So for a very long time, sort of 5 to 10 years plus, they have already had if this then that engines built into their environment. So when it then comes to asking Copilot to build automations for you, they've got the framework to deliver it. They already understand how to integrate these things, how to build them for you, and how to handle all of them correctly. It doesn't mean that what you get out is going to be perfect. Everything requires refining. Always check it, same with everything else. But it's a really good, if this happens, do that engine. And asking Copilot for the prompts, asking Copilot to then implement it will save you a lot of time if used correctly. So that's really where Copilot sits. In terms of quick wins you can make, obviously, same as with Google Meet, ask it to summarize your meetings, ask it to give you key discussion points, next steps, create project plans, ask it to take action, not just take notes. Think of it as a PA or a VA on steroids. They will do everything and some because they've got the skill set to do so. So ask it to not just take the notes, ask it to take action and inform you on what needs to happen when, update you accordingly, either put it on your diary, send you a reminder, whatever that looks like. You can ask it to draft reports for you, create a summary based on this data, write a proposal based on this, these kind of things. Only ever ask it, like I've said, to produce drafts. Never let it produce a final document. It will need rewording. And the worst thing is then you've got to read the entire document and make changes. So if you are going to use it to produce an entire document, not headings, make sure you iterate throughout. And I would say do it section by section as well. Just as with Gemini again, ask it to analyze data in Excel, exactly the same point stands there. It can still generate formulae, it can still do pivot tables, it can still do macros, it can do lookups, it can do all the stuff that you're used to, but it can do it without you having to program it and wonder why you're getting errors in your cells and why you're getting href errors. It will just fix it for you. So ask it to analyze your data or create formulae to do it for you. If you have notes, if you have something coming up, say, for example, you had to give a webinar on AI, you could ask Copilot, I didn't, but you could ask Copilot to produce the entire presentation for you based on a couple of prompts. It can build you slides, headlines, and it will structure it logically. It's important when you are using it for these kind of things, if it's for proposals, pitch decks, summaries, always ask it first to produce content, ask it to create the headlines, and then at the end, ask it to criticize it. Ask it for feedback, ask it how it could improve, ask if the flow makes sense. And again, what it's doing is it's not rationally thinking about this, it's comparing it to what everyone else has done. So just because it says, no, this doesn't work, doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. It just means that no one else has done it that way, but it's still a good indicator. Chances are if the human race is working in a particular way and you're going against them, you might be wrong. But do ask it for that sort of feedback. It can do those. Definitely ask it to summarize email and Outlook. Ask it to draft replies before upcoming meetings. You can actually get it to automatically draft replies to emails that come in, and then you just go through your drafts and you approve and send. Don't get it to automatically send, which it can do, because at that point you're responsible for what a machine has said. That's a dangerous world to be in. But you can say, if someone emails me asking for a meeting, automatically draft a reply confirming via availability or send them a link to my calendar. And you can automate those kind of pieces. They're very nice time saves. You can also ask it how to file your things, how to put them into folders in Inbox, how to tidy it all up so that you can find data easier. Again, you can use Copilot to find data now, but you get the idea. And finally, turn any chat prompts into actions. So because we've got those 365 apps such as Power Automate, Power Apps, and Business Intelligence and Dynamics, because you've got an enterprise suite of tools on the back of it, you can ask it to automatically build things in. So ask it when you finish a meeting, say, look, can you schedule a follow-up meeting for me? Ask this Tanta Planner, generate a summary that I will send to my manager, my colleague, my subordinate, I don't know what the word is there, whoever's working for you, and let it try and close the gap between the work that it's already done and the manual steps you feel you have to take on the back of it. If there's one thing you can learn from all of these, automate as much as possible and ask it to do the next step until the point where it says, I can't do that. Always ask. Safety and privacy is going to work very similarly to Google's here, apart from a couple of context differences. Again, your data will live within Microsoft. It doesn't send the data to the public internet, but it does use it to train its own model. So it doesn't share it externally, but it's definitely training Copilot based on how you use it. Given this, be aware of the fact that the data is being stored within Copilot. It is being accessed and it will not forget them. So don't enter things like passwords or anything like that. This should be obvious, but please don't say, is this a good password, Copilot, and type it in, because it will then suggest that password to other people. It won't say that it's yours, but it is then in its database. Be aware of your Microsoft tenancies permissions, what the boundaries of that look like. That is to say, Copilot only accesses data that's available within its tenancies, its boundary. So if you're asking it to work or collaborate with an additional company, it won't do so. It can only see what you can see theoretically within Outlook or within SharePoint or Word or wherever you're working. So you can't access someone else's files. Just be really cautious of asking it to do so, because that's where things can get a little bit hazy and it will try and sound like it knows what it's doing but give you the wrong information. So just be aware of basically what's shared in your organization and what isn't. Obviously, review all your AI content. Same goes for all of these three. And especially with 365, I'd say having a look at some of the enterprise security, the enterprise permissions in there can go a long way when it comes to audit logging and data retention policies. If you don't have any policies to retain data, Copilot loses its efficacy because it can't look back as far. It can't build as much knowledge. So make sure that Copilot's enabled under enterprise grade configurations. If you don't know how to do that, ask a nerd. I can think of one or two who can help. In terms of keeping your policies up to date, similar to Google, review them, see what's being changed, have a look at its privacy terms as Copilot keeps evolving. In particular, I would say for Gemini and Copilot compared to GPT. Reason for that is that they weren't first to the race. So they are playing catch up constantly, despite Google having DeepMind and using AI, having it as a chatbot, such as Gemini is relatively new for them. So those terms are going to be changing every quarter, and they might be changing quite dramatically one way or another. And the same is definitely true for Copilot, especially as it becomes fully integrated into Windows, as it is rolled out more. Those usage policies are going to shift dramatically. So be really cautious and conscious of what that looks like with safety tools. Next one, ChatGPT, hopefully the one that everyone has used the most. Normally when I speak to them, it's the case. ChatGPT is fantastic at ideation, at prompts, at inspiring you on what to write. It can also, if you train it enough, write in your own voice, much better than I find Gemini and Copilot can. It is brilliant at these creative prompts, at expanding on those pieces. It should not write all of it for you. Okay? Now, you can ask it to, but that's a bad idea. What you should be doing is asking it to prompt, asking it to refine, asking it for feedback, and using it almost like a coach. That's where it sits really well. Really good for brainstorming, really good even for accountability. You can actually on ChatGPT enable voice mode, talk to it directly. So you can actually have a phone call with your ChatGPT and ask it to be your accountability coach, your accountability provider, and brainstorm things with it verbally. It's quite nice for that. It's very nice at drafting and editing content. It's very nice at changing tone based on what you want to do. Can you make this more assertive? This is too aggressive. Can you dial it down? Can you make it more concise? Can you make it more client friendly? Can you expand on this? I really need it to be 500 words, not 250. That's where it can come into its own, where that level of creation is expanding on what you've given it to make it match what you wanted it to be. It's very nice at learning, at directing you on how to improve. You can ask it to test you. You can ask it to give you a quiz. You can ask it to summarize topics or books that you want to learn. It's very nice, especially when you drift into more technical learning, but it is a good prompt for most things. However, it's worth noting it still doesn't understand context. So a good example, because I'm a chess nerd, ChatGPT cannot play you at chess. It can teach you the rules, but it cannot tell you what is allowed or isn't. It just doesn't have that context awareness. So that's going to be true across a whole host of things. It knows where you can go for the answers. It often knows what the correct answer is, but it doesn't give you the context of it because it's only ever guessing the next word. So it's a really good tutor. Again, as with all things, ask it to give its sources. But it can be a good trainer, and asking it to quiz you is quite fun as well. It's very nice at problem solving. If you are stuck, if you're thinking of a way to do it, I use ChatGPT for this. Can you write me a marketing plan for XYZ? We want to do this. How does it look? Can I make this process, detail the process, more efficient? What could be causing this problem? And it will just prompt you. And you can say, I've tried those 5 things, give me 5 more, give me 5 more, give me 5 more. You may see on our side from Octopus that we post a lot of videos on LinkedIn. Don't want to spoil it for you, but we can't think of that many topics. So we ask ChatGPT, please give us 100 questions that people may ask about IT, and then we throw them at our team to record the answers to those questions. Really simple way of doing it. It removed the thinking element we had to do, but still let us produce the content and be the face of what's coming out there. So that level of brainstorming is really nice as well. The trick with using it for problem solving is to basically get the conversation going, to treat it like a conversational agent where you can say, oh, I'm not sure about that. Can you go back? We've already tried this. Don't take one answer and done. A lot of people, when they first start using GPT, will put in a question, get an answer and leave it at that. The more you go back to it and say, actually, can you explore a different angle on that one? I think you're wrong. Can you write an argument to the contrary? That's where you're really starting to maximize what it can do. It's really good, as with the others, at summarizing information as well. Give me key takeaways. Particularly, Gemini is slightly better at this because it's more current, but if you've got a website where you're trying to condense all the learnings, it's really nice at that. The other point to highlight with GPT is it has what's known as a deep research model. You can switch into deep research in ChatGPT and ask it to do a complete analysis on one of your competitors or even your own business and your market standing, on client perception, and it will do a really deep dive across the entire web for you. That will involve things like looking at your Google ranking, looking at your reviews, looking at any chat forums where you're mentioned. It does a really good job across the whole internet surface of finding what's going on. So have a look at GPT Deep Research if you haven't done already. And finally, OpenAI's ChatGPT is very good at open-ended tasks. That is something where it is not just a firm end. If you're exploring or refining a certain idea, it can play with a lot more ideas than Gemini or Copilot would by nature. Fundamentally, that's because Gemini is biased to always promote Google. So if you ask it for the best tool to solve a problem, it probably will start saying that Google Workspace is the best solution. Well, Gemini and Copilot are quite biased. GPT is agnostic about that. It's a bit more of an all-rounder. Again, doesn't mean it's perfect. The others should still be learning from this. Everything's going to come up to an even keel eventually. But for now, asking it ongoing things are really nice. And you can also create threaded projects within GPT to return back to and continue to build on previous conversations. You can ask it to create prompts for next chats so that you don't overload a thread. There's a lot of nice things you can do quite easily. Moving into quick wins you can have, obviously get it to start drafting some messages for you. You can easily say, summarize this. How do I make it more professional? How can I make it friendly but more concise? Can you create something polished? Here's my tone. And it's important when you're doing this to specify how you want to sound. Something which is slightly harder to do on the others, but you can specify your tone, your formality, your length, how you want to come across, and then ask it to produce that. You can also say things like don't use em dashes, don't use certain gerunds, don't use certain words, don't use hyperbole. A lot of things which give away the fact that it's AI. You can get it to remove those as well. Again, as with the others, also good at summarizing reports and notes, giving you the key action points on the back of it. Where I think it comes in really nicely is creating social media content. There's a lot of noise on social anyway, and I'm not going to advocate for you just churning out AI crap and putting it there. However, if you are stuck on what to post or what to come up with, asking it to help you for ideas is a really nice one. Can you give me 3 LinkedIn posts promoting my upcoming webinar on AI productivity? What a good idea. You can then get it to generate different terms, different text things, different images that it thinks will be good, and it will start producing those for you. It can also obviously do well at brainstorming. I suggest you start doing that, asking it to give you names for an upcoming project or brand, asking it to give you potential causes of a problem, asking it how it would fix problems. This is where people aren't using it enough. We're using GPT an awful lot for content creation. We're not using or leveraging it enough for problem solving. And realistically, there is content everywhere. Asking AI to write you a blog post is not going to change your business. Asking it where you could maximize efficiency, if it starts adding 1, 2, 3, 5% in terms of operational efficiency across every process, it's going to start making you money, which a blog post isn't going to do. So start thinking of how you can leverage it, asking it for prompts, asking it what it would suggest. We've started doing this with our team. We've asked them to put in their process, say, look, this is how we work. Can you recommend how AI could be leveraged to make our process smoother and more efficient? And again, I think GPT is the best on the market at this compared to Gemini and Copilot at the moment. There are other models such as Claude and stuff and Grok, which we don't have time to get into, but GPT as an off-the-shelf option works really well. And you should, when it comes to brainstorming, use it like a whiteboard. Use it just to come up with lots of ideas and see what sticks, and then ask it to refine them and ask it to recommend which one it thinks is best. You don't have to make the decision. Ask it to evaluate it. Just give it the criteria. If you don't know what criteria to give it, ask it to set the criteria. It can basically argue with itself for you, and then you just have to make informed decisions based on the data you gather. You can also get GPT to do something the others aren't as good at. You can ask it to write prompts for other AI tools. So if you're building a website and you want to use WordPress AI or Elegant Themes or WordPress Bakery, you can ask it to write a prompt for their AI tool to produce the website. You can ask it to write the prompt for Midjourney to produce images. You can ask it to write the prompt for Gemini or Copilot, whatever that looks like. So you can say to GPT, can you write a Midjourney prompt for a clean, modern infographic explaining X, Y, and Z? Or can you write a prompt for Gemini to summarize this 10-page report? It's a really clever meta use of AI, asking one AI model to produce prompts for the other without you having to do a lot of prompt engineering learning. So ask GPT how best to use it and ask it to produce the prompts for you can make things a lot easier. So if you are, say, taking some of the learnings from here and you go into Gemini in Google Sheets or Copilot in Excel and you feel as though it isn't producing what you're asking it, take the prompt you've given, put it into ChatGPT free, say I've put this in and I'm getting an error, please can you reword the prompt to produce the following output? That should then start solving the problems for you. And finally, like I said, with GPT, quick wins, get it to teach you new skills. Ask it to explain complex topics, ask it to give you quick tutorials, ask it for a quiz, teach me the basics of project management, teach me the top levels of this thing. I was at a networking event, someone mentioned this book, can you give me 5 key takeaways from it so I can sound cleverer than I am? If that's who you are, it does those things very nicely. So it adapts to your level, it will give you instant feedback as long as you ask it to. Safety and privacy. GPT is a funny one because you won't own your data so much. So with Gemini and Copilot, your data is ring-fenced and contained within your tenancy. GPT, less so. They still don't identify data, so it's still not identified to you, but you have to assume that your prompts are not private unless you're using the secure enterprise grade version. So everything you put in there is being accessed and analyzed by GPT to build on. Similarly, like we've said with all of them, treat the output as a draft. Don't treat it as the final, it's good to go, I'll send it out to everybody. It only will ever produce draft answers. What I've said basically is the human judgment layer is what keeps AI safe and valuable. If you remove that element, it's not going to work for you. You still have to be judging it. Even if you're asking it how to, you still have to be making that final decision. And you've got to be comfortable with what's going out there. To that end, I haven't directly said it, but don't use it to produce legal content. Goes without saying, don't use it to draft out a contract for you. Don't get it to produce anything which you have to sign your life away on. You can get it to check the documentation. You can get it to produce something sensible, but you definitely need to be throwing those via a legal professional. Don't lean into it for that. GPT in particular, avoid sharing confidential data, especially if you're using the consumer version of chat.openai.com. Don't paste anything sensitive into there. Just don't do it. You can get away with it slightly on the team or enterprise version of GPT because they include what's known as data isolation and encryption, and they don't train based on your inputs. Hence, the final point on there being use enterprise or team plans. But if you are using the free one, be very cautious. Also, like I've alluded to, get it to give you stats. Effectively, GPT in particular does what's known as hallucinations. It creates things entirely. If it can't find enough information, it will just make stuff up because it thinks that that's what you want to hear. GPT of all of these models is the most want to be pleased. It's the one that must be liked the most. So it will always tell you that everything you've got is a great idea, great plan. That's perfect. Good thinking. What a great idea. It always says this whenever you prompt. It wants to make you into a narcissist. So always get it to verify stats or quotes and get it to give sources for any external facts. You can give it a quick check with Gemini or something if you want to double check what it's saying. But yeah, verify facts and sources, especially from ChatGPT, because it's known to lie. Doesn't do it on purpose, it's just how it works. Have a look at the enterprise and teams plans if you are going to start using it. If you do want to roll it out, be cautious of how it's training the model based on your data. You don't necessarily want to give away all of your IP. And obviously follow its policies. It is a constantly evolving landscape at the moment with AI and compliance. No one actually has regulatory guideline or oversight of what they're doing. The moment it's the Wild West. So be really cautious with what you're putting into there because we don't yet know what's enforceable and what isn't. So even though they're saying that the enterprise and team models don't use your data for X, Y, and Z, we don't know what we don't know. And at the moment, there isn't a law that says they can't or they can't do certain things. There's always a caveat. You normally find that compliance and regulation is 5 to 10 years out of date compared to what's going on. So we just do not have any laws at the moment, practical laws governing the use of AI and what those companies can do. So just be really on looking at the policies. If you don't want to read the entire T's and C's and privacy policy, you can link it to ChatGPT and ask it to give you the risks. It will be honest about that because that's its job. It will predict the next words. It does like to criticize itself. You can ask it to as well. So just make sure you know what you're asking it to use, what your expectations are. And now I can breathe and drink my coffee as we go to Q&A. But I hope that that was in some way useful to give you an overview of GPT, Gemini, and Copilot. You can unmute now, Romy.
Thank you very much, Jon. So yeah, if everybody has anyone has any question, please put it in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we can read it and just make sure we can answer. I had a question that had been sent via email from another person that couldn't attend today, and they were asking, do you think AI will destroy the marketing industry at some point?
No, but that's only because the marketing industry is quite diverse. I think that AI is very good at producing content, but not very good at understanding people in the true sense. Good marketing knows why people buy, it knows what to put in front of people, and AI is very good at producing words. I think it may damage copywriters, but I think good copywriters are already starting to lean into these tools to increase their output, not to change it. So Gemini does not write great content. Copilot, GPT, they don't write as good a content as a professional PR copywriting firm. They don't. They never will because they are more generic. It's sort of, if you were like, Romy, we're not PR experts. If we were to write a press release, it wouldn't be good as an expert. That's basically the same quality you would get from GPT producing it. Maybe slightly better, but it's never going to, I believe, fully replace the entire sector. It will change it a lot. It will change a lot of the way in which budgets are handled for marketing. It will change the accessibility of marketing. A lot of small and micro businesses feel they don't have the budget for marketing, and I think this is going to change that quite dramatically. I don't think it's going to replace all of it. Additionally, there's elements of marketing that I don't think it will ever truly handle properly. So producing full information packs, complete graphic design, actual advertising, print, traditional marketing, which I still don't think isn't going anywhere. I think that's where it's going to change it.
Okay. I've got, I think it's more like a comment than a question. Like a comment that I heard last week was that AI can gain a racial bias due to the users. Is this something to be aware of?
Yes, AI is racist. It's not that it's a little bit biased, it just fundamentally is. AI is racist and sexist, and you can prove it. Ask it to create a picture of a person at work, and it will be a white male at a desk. Okay, universally. And this is because it's based on what data is being fed to it on the systems that it's trained on. So the way that LLMs or language learning models work is they are built through reinforcement learning. So it says, produce a picture of a pizza. It Googles a pizza. It recreates where it thinks those pixels should be and what color, and says, hey, is this any good? And then someone says yes or no, that looks like a pizza. When that happens across something like the internet, which is universally a horrible place, you end up with a lot of bias going into it depending on how it's been taught. Because a lot of internet generation originally was led through the Western world by effectively white men, you end up with this enormous bias going on. It's slightly different when you look at tools like DeepSeek, which are obviously from Asia, but it's there. It's really worth being aware of, and you can try and call it out, but there's only so much you can do. Just like dealing with people who have racial bias, it's only going to take you so far. Just be aware of it. Doesn't mean you can overcome it. I wish I could solve the world's racial inequality tomorrow, but just be aware that it's going on.
Okay.
Especially with gender as well.
Yeah. Lawrence has a question as well. Thanks, Jon. Any recommendations for best prompt adherence for image generation?
That's a tough one because I would assume that question normally comes from someone who's done it and got really annoyed with the fact that it doesn't produce the images you want. So things to be aware of when you're doing it. First thing is if you want PNGs, that is images without a background, it can't do that. GPT in particular cannot produce those sort of transparent images. There is no point asking to it. Ask it to do something with a plain white background and then stripping that out on a tool like Pixlr or Photoshop is a really good way of doing it. Well, you could ask it how to improve those prompts. You could ask it to iterate and remember it. And when you've produced a good image, what you can also do is upload a template of a photo and say, can you write me a prompt which will produce an image very similar to this? And treat it like iterative reinforcement learning yourself. So give it the picture. Can you write me a prompt that will produce this image? Then give it back the prompt, make that image. If it's crap, go back to the original prompt and say, look, this is what I asked for. This is what I got. Observe the differences, which it can do because it looks at the pixel contrast. Can you rewrite the prompt better? And effectively get it to do the work. Remember, no one knows prompt generation like the AI tools do. So that's often the best way of doing it. But they are limited. It will never produce the same image twice. It just can't do it.
Useful, thanks.
It's nice when I get one right.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I know probably everybody noticed, but the octopuses that are in the webinar are produced by ChatGPT. And I always use the same words when I create those, like cute, nerdy, happy, blue octopus. That's always the one. So yeah. But
yeah, you can always tell because you can count the legs.
Yes, as well.
So the octopus on that screen, I think, has got, is it 9 legs?
No,
1, 2,
he has
3,
8.
4,
He has
5,
8.
6,
I
7,
counted
8.
him.
It's got 2 in the background.
He's got 2 in the background, but you can't see them.
It's got 9 legs.
Count.
So yeah, it does a lot of things poorly. AI can't count. It just generates content. So those sorts of things will go wrong. Don't ever get it to produce text in images.
Yes.
That can often go really poorly. Ask it to produce a text with a place for you to upload text into, those kind of things. I would say that there was a time where you had to use tools like Midjourney for image creation, but actually GPT and Gemini have come on quite a lot. Don't use Copilot for it, but GPT and Gemini have come on quite a long way for that kind of piece. So
Midjourney is like, it's really like, I don't like Midjourney.
Yeah, it's a different level. Same as I think Sora does something similar as well, but yeah, stick with GPT.
Nice. Which system of AI works best for bringing multiple calendars into one version of the truth?
Ooh, okay. None of them. That isn't necessarily an AI system. You probably would be better using a tool like Zapier, Zapier. You can then log into all those different calendars and ask it to condense them all onto a single shared calendar for you. Zapier is an if this then that engine. You could ask AI how to do that. I'd recommend you do, because Zapier can be a pain in the ass to build in, but that's definitely the way to do it. The other option you can do, if they are Google calendars or Outlook, to be fair, export everything from one, upload it to the other calendar, delete it.
Yeah. Nice. And another question from Alison. What is your opinion of the AI assistants within platform, example, LinkedIn?
My opinion of them isn't high. I think that everyone is scrambling to try and make their business into an AI business. And there's a number of reasons. A lot of it comes down to money. There is, at the moment, a trend within Silicon Valley and VC raising, which, because I'm a nerd, I have to get involved in quite a lot for tech startups. Unless you have AI in there, no one wants to touch you. So all of these larger organizations, they have to start including AI as a default, because if not, they're not deemed appropriate to investors or to their board. LinkedIn may be the only exception of all of the ones to mention. And the reason is that LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. Microsoft owns Copilot. Doesn't mean their assistant is good. It's crap. LinkedIn is famously the least modern social media platform in use out there that isn't going to go away. And I like it for that, because it doesn't change. But I don't think that there's yet a place for using AI within those sorts of platforms. I really think that you should be using the right tool for the right job. And I don't think it needs one. You can just as easily ask ChatGPT to analyze something on LinkedIn as you can LinkedIn. I don't think it works fundamentally. The use AI to write your connection note or use AI in LinkedIn to find me appropriate people. It's not as good as having a separate tool to use it.
Alison is glad you agree with her.
I agree with a lot of things with Alison. That's okay.
Brilliant. I don't know if there is any more questions, but I think you went quite deep in all of that. So thank you very much, Jon. Oh, sorry. Great overview. Thank you.
I hope it was worth getting out of bed for, Steve.
Yes, I was thinking when I saw your name, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, honestly, if you want questions outside of this, if you want to follow up, drop me an email. I'm always happy to rant about it over a coffee. It is something which is changing all the time. So it's worth saying that what we were taught today, what I've covered today, is going to be very different 6 months from now, as it was 6 months ago. Yeah, a year ago, I'd have been telling everyone not to use Copilot, and I'd have refused to talk about it. It was that bad. So we are in a different place now, and I imagine that's going to keep evolving as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody. The webinar will be we're recording it right now, and it's going to be on our YouTube channel. I'm going to, for those who have our newsletter, you're going to have the link in there, and I'm going to send it as well to the ones who are not in the newsletter. So like this, you can catch up on what we said, and you can just like pick the bit that you need whenever you want, because it's quite a lot to digest. Thank you so much, Jon, for everything, for the speech
Okay.
and all of that, and thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you again in the next webinar. I don't know what about it will be, but we'll find another subject. There's plenty.
There's
Or
enough to
feel
talk
free
about
to.
in IT. Yeah, if you're something you want us to talk about, drop us an
Yes.
email, put it in the chat, message along. I can talk about most things that run on electricity to a reasonable length. Whether it's something deep like cryptography or blockchain technologies, all the way to how do I make the most out of Word. So yeah, put some suggestions through. I'm happy
Yeah.
to rant about anything.
He's a very good
Where
chess
do you think
player
this
as well.
webinar came from, Alison? No, we could ask ChatGPT for anything. Obviously, that's how we will be producing them. But if there's something which our audience actually wants, as opposed to AI guessing it, tying it all
Yeah,
back to what we talked about, obviously that would be more useful.
absolutely. All
All
right
right.
then. But thank you so much, and have a great day.
No worries. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.